Hey everybody, welcome, welcome to Hidden Horror. Thank you for spending this time with me. I appreciate that. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome to Hidden Horror. How are you guys doing today? I hope all is well with you. So you guys already know I've been sick. I've had this cold. I was getting better, but it's come back on me. I tried to help my sister do some yard work, and when I tell you it lapped around on me so hard, it was like I had started completely over. So please forgive me if I'm coughing a little bit. I've taken medicine. I will try my best, but we're going to move forward. Please let me know. I have started doing some shorter clips. They're called shorts, but I'm trying that out to see if I can gain the attention of people because some people don't like to watch longer videos. Let me know what you think. I'm trying to keep them between about a minute and a half and 3 minutes long, and I'm only doing these short clips on the Idaho 4 murder case. I'm not going to do my other cases. This is my biggest case. This is my focus. I know I have the Sean Combs cases, but I'm not so much focused on his case. I may decide to do maybe some shorter videos, but I'm not sure. But I'm only doing these shorts on the Bryan Kohberger case. Again, we are leading up to the trial. The trial is less than 3 months out. It's slated for August the 11th. So we're preparing now with these last hearings. Recently, there was a pretrial hearing on May the 15th, and there was so much in that pretrial hearing and I want to go over it. I'm going to use parts of the pretrial hearing. I have a link to pretrial hearing on the Hidden Horror Facebook page, but I'm going to show you in detail some of the highlights. And I also have one article just to kind of pull it all together, but I can just quickly give you like a quick synopsis of what happened. So, for the most part, they were really there to talk about some of the things like the jury questionnaires, the voir dire. That is the process of selecting the jurors, eliminating the jurors. Um, you have different ways to strike a juror, okay? So they were talking a little bit about that, but it kind of got upended because this Dateline special. Now, I have not watched the Dateline special, but all over YouTube, there have been so many videos made kind of reviewing the special. And some of the highlights that I noticed in the reviews were when I saw the pictures that allegedly came from Bryan Kohberger's cell phone, I immediately thought they were altered. They look like they manipulated the pictures, they distorted the pictures, they darkened the pictures. Um, this has been a problem in this particular case since the beginning. I have videos in the past where I talk about, you know, giving out the case facts, the evidence, putting that out there. It really taints a jury because some of the alleged evidence, it may not even be entered at trial. And what was found to be released in that Dateline special, from what I have heard, it's been the video of the suspect vehicle, things that were on allegedly Bryan Kohberger's cell phone. Who has access? His cell phone should be in lockup. It should be secured. There should be no way to get to this type of evidence. This should be in police custody. There should be a chain of custody. So I would want to know, if I was Judge Hippler, who has access to the records, to the evidence that should be locked away. There has to be a chain of custody. So who had access in particular to Bryan Kohberger's cell phone? Who signed the cell phone out? Who reviewed the cell phone? Is it something from the past? where this download happened and now it's later being slowly released out to the public, for example, in the Dateline episode special? Or is this something more recent? Did someone recently sign out Bryan Kohberger's cell phone? And then again, what is the benefit? What is the purpose of releasing all of this physical evidence, the video of the suspect, if it's not to taint the jury? The trial is less than 3 months away. Why would someone want to release that evidence prior to trial? It's to taint the jury. It's to put in the jurors' minds that this is the suspect vehicle, this is Bryan Kohberger's car, this is the car. But again, that's only part of it. You still have to show the burglary count, which requires two things. I've already went over this. There's a video and there's a short for it. But there's two things. You have to show Bryan Kohberger making entry into the property. So you can have all of these videos. You can put the videos together to say this is the suspect vehicle, but you still have to show Bryan Kohberger making entry into the property, 1122 King Road. That is part of the burglary charge. The other part of the burglary charge is intent, the intent to commit a felony. And again, the felony is the murder of the four victims. We'll go through that a little bit more, but that's Zana Cornolo and Ethan Chapin. At that time, they were both 20 years old, and then they were a couple, boyfriend and girlfriend, and then you have Maddie Madison Mogan and Kaylee Gonclave's best friends, okay? And they were 21 years old at the time of their death. So it's frustrating. I'm sure before the pretrial hearing, off the record, there was discussion, there was argument, there was recommendations of, okay, what can we do now? This Dateline special, it has been released. It has revealed allegedly evidence that should not have been released, has never been released, may not have even been released or included, submitted as evidence in the trial. It's out there now. What can you do about it? So the judge, through an administrative order, and we're going to go over that administrative order. In fact, I need to share that administrative order with you. Let me see. My apologies. I have to check my devices and see which one has the order. My apologies. Okay. I'm going to share it right now. Oh, my apologies. Even though you wouldn't think that this would be a huge issue, it really is. All right. Let me just share it real quick. My apologies. All right. And so it's an order from Judge Hippler. I'm posting it now on the Hidden Horror Facebook page. We're going to go over it also today, but you wouldn't think it would be a big deal, but it really is because it relates to the evidence in the case. Everything, it could be true, right? Something could be true, but it doesn't mean that it's going to be submitted and allowed entry as an exhibit at the trial. They have to go back and forth and make that decision. The judge has to decide what is going to be entered as evidence. So when you see leaks, and again, we've seen leaks over these 2 years, right? And we know one of the biggest sources of the leaks, I'm not going to say their name, but we already know one of the largest sources of the leaks. But we also get leaks through the media, but this is something that is a little bit different. Now, just like my platform, I have my opinion. I'm able to give you my ideas, my thoughts. I'm able to review evidence, information in the case. I'm able to talk freely about how I feel. My apologies. I have like this new thing on my phone, and I really don't know how to use my new system. So I don't even know how to like turn the volume on my phone down now. They gave me like a new operating system, which is totally different. If you guys are getting that where you had to upload, like upgrade your phone, sorry about this. This is my husband. I apologize. I tried to mute my phone, but I guess I didn't. But this new system on my phone, I'm learning it, but it's different. Almost reminds me of an iPhone. So I have like three phones. The iPhone I never use, but I have it. And then I have a regular Android. And then I have like two more phones that are Android, but I prefer Android. The iPhone, this operating system that they made me upgrade the Android with reminds me is very similar to the iPhone. I don't like it. That's why I don't want to have an iPhone, but I have to have an iPhone. So anyway, I have a lot of phones. But anyway, moving on. Let's get back focused again. So the important part is you don't want any evidence out there because first off, you don't even know if that evidence will be introduced. That has to go through the process of submitting it in court. um, the other side, prosecution or defense, can object to the evidence, and then the judge will make the determination. So, although you can have evidence, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be entered at trial. So, what happens when you have leaks that's out in the media or um, other sources, that evidence may not be introduced, and then you can have a prospective juror that gets picked, and then they have all of this evidence that they're reading about or seeing, but it never gets introduced. So they could literally be set on the jury, be a juror, and they're thinking about, well, where is this evidence at? They could even talk to other jurors, tainting them as well about information, evidence that they've heard or saw that never gets introduced at trial. And that's a huge problem. A lot of times the judge can decide to strike that evidence. So, for example, I saw the video now of the suspect vehicle kind of driving around the 1122 King Road home. And you can see that the camera is directly pointed at the property, 1122 King Road. So we know that this would be evidence that's in custody with the police. You have to think who has access. Um, Law enforcement, police, possible experts, the prosecution, the defense, etc. So someone that had the responsibility to protect the evidence, preserve the evidence, keep an accurate record, keep accurate chain of custody, has somehow released, shared this evidence, and it's gotten into the hands of the media. Now, in this case, it is this Dateline special, but we've seen information, evidence that's been leaked out through other sources as well. But we're going to focus on this Dateline um, special. Now, again, I haven't seen it, but I've seen clips. I may watch it. I intend to watch it, but I'm very busy. I want to focus more on what's happening in the courtroom, and a lot happened on May 15th. Um, I had a chance now to kind of watch the entire May 15th hearing, and I've linked it on the Hidden Horror Facebook page, so you can check it out. Um, and I found so much information. So I want to go through that. I do have an article. I always like to have an article for foundation, and then we're going to go through parts of the hearing together so I can identify some things. But if you don't have time to watch this video, I understand. You're busy. Trust me, I am very busy too. But I do want to go over some things, but I want to have some highlights. Now I have to refer to my notes. Um, when I'm going over these highlights because it's just so much information, and I am sick, so I've been struggling, you guys, with this cold. So I'm going to be kind of going through and looking down. My apologies, okay? Um, I'm going to go over everything first, and then I'm going to pick out things that we're going to watch, and also the one article, okay? So some things that was discussed at the May 15th hearing. They talked about the demonstrative dollhouse, okay? The dollhouse is complete. The defense, they had two experts that reviewed it, okay? So you need to know that. There was a little part about the alternative perpetrators, okay? That was discussed. The defense, the judge wants more specifics, more supporting evidence. He wants that by May 23rd. He's giving the prosecution until June the 6th to respond to that additional information, and then they're going to have a hearing on June 18th, okay, making a decision about what's going to be allowed relating to the alternative perpetrators. My assumption from listening to the hearing, and you can tell me what you think after you either watch it um, or later come and comment, share your thoughts, but it appeared that the judge was not satisfied with the amount of information provided. Maybe it was not enough details, and the judge wants more specifics. He wants evidence. He wants supporting information for these alternative perpetrators. Now, the defense may not want to reveal their entire hand, but they have to provide adequate information for the judge to review and make a determination, okay? So let's continue, okay? Um, they talked a lot about the jurors, the jury questionnaires. They talked about voir dire, getting a background of the jurors, getting for more information on the witnesses to make sure that the jurors don't know the witnesses, that there's no conflict there. Um, they need information on the jurors. So, for example, if the juror knows a lot of information about the Bryan Kohberger case, they may not want to have that person sit on the jury because it could be that they have this, again, tainted information, evidence that's been released, and it may not even enter into the case, for example. So they want to ask the jurors a lot of questions. They want to be able to weed out the jurors so they're not wasting time questioning people that just will never be set on this jury, okay? The judge kind of talked a little bit about possibly sequestering the jurors. Pretty much this Dateline special has now caused a lot of problems, and financially, it may cost more if they have to sequester the jury for this 3-month period that the trial is expected to go. Okay, so he talked a little bit about that, and they're definitely going to sequester the jurors once the jury is deliberating. So once the case is handed to the jurors for them to make a decision, they're going to sequester them from that moment on, okay? He talked a little bit about, it was a lot about courtroom, how he runs his courtroom, how the trial will be. He's really big on etiquette and resolving issues. And if you have a thought, if you have a problem, please bring it up. Bring it up early as it comes up, so he can deal with it. It gives him time to prepare, to respond appropriately. He does not want any surprises. He does not want any antics. He doesn't want to waste any time for the jurors. He talked about how he wanted the trial to go daily. It would be Monday through Friday from 8:45 a.m. to 3:30 p.m. And he said that if anything comes up on a daily basis, I want everyone ready to go at 8:15, and we can address it before the jury comes out at 8:45, or after the jury is done, after our day is done, after about 3 35 p.m. Hey, we can discuss things. So basically, before court and after court, we're going to address anything. We're going to pound it out so we can keep going. We're not going to waste any time. If something comes up, we can have like a little mini conference where you come up to the bench and talk to me, and we'll be private, but we're not going to waste any time. The judge talked about reserved seating, and that he was going to have 2 seats for the statutory victims, and that would be, he's referring to Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen as those victims, and he's going to have 4 seats for the Bryan Kohberger family. So Bryan Kohberger will have 4 seats allotted to him for the courtroom seating, and he feels that on a daily basis, if these seats aren't going to be taking these reserved seats, then there's so many people that have interest that they will be able to take these seats, because he wants this trial to really be public. They're going to have still cams, so there will be a camera at the podium, at the defense table, like on him, different cameras that'll be still. They're going to be witnesses, like the 2 victims. If they don't want to be on camera, they don't have to be. At one point, the defense did say, we have some witnesses that's concerned about being on camera, and the prosecutor actually said they have a few people that have special operations, kind of undercover. They don't want to be on camera. And the judge said, listen, it has to be a compelling reason why this is not going to be public. We want a public trial. Bryan Kohberger has a right to a fair trial, a public trial. So he was only concerned about the 2 victims, but he said, get with me. You guys need to come and agree and come forward and tell me why these people should not be on camera. Okay. So he talked about the witnesses, the testimony. He went over exhibits. He said that for safety, if they have, like, for example, a knife, that it would be in a display for trial so no one could get hurt. But he didn't think that there was a gun involved, so he wasn't worried about that. Lastly, he talked about his administrative order and how, there was an order that no one should violate the non-dissemination agreement, and that now he wants to preserve records, and he wants I believe he wants the prosecutor to bring up the need for a special prosecutor to criminally investigate what happened to this leak, who did the leak, and that everyone now needs to preserve all the records, because they're going to find out who did the leak. Again, who had access to, particularly, for example, Bryan Kohberger's phone, because how would they have those pictures if they didn't come from his phone? I'm sure there was a download, who had access, and they're going to find out. They'll be able to go back and see who had access to those records, what experts, what law enforcement, all of that. So, wait a second. Plug this in. I'm surprised it's unplugged. My apologies. I'm trying to fit it in now. My apologies. Make sure my microphone is good. So I'm doing really good, you guys, because I'm typically not able to talk this long. So this is going good. Let's hope it continues. So let's get started. Let's start with the article, okay, that I'm going to go over, and then we're going to get right into the pre-trial hearing. Okay, wait. And this is just to lay more of a foundation for everything I've already said. But I like to back it up with a news article, someone that is reputable, of course, okay? So this article is from CBSnews.com. It's titled, Judge in Bryan Kohberger Trial Wants to Know Who Leaked Information About Idaho Student Murders Investigation. And this is dated May 16th, 2025. And I'm trying to see who the writer is. Their name is not just standing out. Excuse me. I don't know why I can't see the writer's name. I think this is from their crime division. Okay. But let's continue. And I've linked the article if you would like to read it, okay? So the judge overseeing Bryan Kohberger's upcoming quadruple murder trial says he wants to identify anyone who may have violated a gag order by leaking information from the investigation to news organizations or anyone else not directly involved with the case. Fourth District Judge Steven Hippler ordered prosecutors and defense attorneys on Wednesday to give him a list of everyone, including staffers, law enforcement officers, and defense consultants who might have had access to the previously unreported information about Kohberger's internet search history and other details that were featured in an NBC Dateline episode that aired May 9th. So this Dateline episode, it revealed, I will not say unknown, but never released evidence that may not even come out in trial. And the judge is saying, how? How did this happen? Who had access to this evidence? Who leaked this evidence? And I agree 100%. Now, I do not think it has risen to the level where the judge is going to strike this evidence. For example, the video of the suspect vehicle, that was one piece. I saw in a clip, because they have like a little trailer, is about a little bit over 2 minutes. I watched the trailer. Now I can't show you the trailer or share the trailer because, again, this is part of what the judge is saying should not have been released, so I don't want to be in trouble. But I did watch the trailer today, but I have not watched the episode at all. But I noticed that picture of Bryan Kohberger, it was very darkened, like distorted. It appeared to be altered, like they manipulated it to look worse. Now I've heard some other things, like someone saw Bryan Kohberger like hiking. Someone had met Bryan Kohberger like at a party, but it didn't really go anywhere. Things like that. I don't know how the hiking thing will hurt Bryan Kohberger, because from my knowledge, that's something that he said that he routinely did, that when he moved to Pullman, Washington, by this being a new area, something that he enjoyed doing was the hiking, the running, the stargazing, the moon watching, the taking up the photographs. So people are encountering him and he's out hiking. It kind of supports what he's alleging he routinely did. So again, I have not watched it. I'm trying not to be tainted by some of these bigger media outlets and these specials they're putting on about Bryan Kohberger, this information. And of course, some of the victims' family members also have released quite a bit of information and evidence. So I try not to be tainted. That's why I did not cover Steve Kaylee Gonclave's father had did a interview recently with the Drunk Turkey show, and I didn't go over that. I did mention a few things he said, which kind of supported what I was thinking may have happened, but I didn't go over that whole interview. He's done many interviews all over. So again, these leaks, where are these people? Where are these media outlets getting the information from? Who is the source of the leaks or sources? Because it could be more than one area. So I agree 100% with the judge looking into this and trying to hammer this down to stop it. And more specifically, because now they're in the process of sitting this jury probably in another, what is this, mid-May, in another 2 months. They'll be probably doing jury selection, and that might take a couple of weeks or a couple of days. I don't know, but they probably going to give themselves a little bit of time for that. And this is right around the time where, you don't want to have this happening, is what I'm getting to. But let's continue with the article. Excuse me. The judge said he would be open to appointing a special prosecutor to track down the leak, which likely violated a gag order that has been in place since 2023. So the judge is suggesting or hinting or nudging, more than likely, the prosecutor, because the prosecutor should be concerned about upholding the evidence, Bryan Kohberger's rights, not having these leaks happen. So he should be the one to request that a special prosecutor be appointed. And you want a special prosecutor because you want it to be a separate investigation. They're going to look into this action, this criminal action, by violating the gag order, and it shouldn't be Bill Thompson or any of those. They have to focus on the trial. The trial is just weeks away now, and they can be impartial, they can be separate, and then the judge is also not managing it. Maybe they're going to be someone else kind of managing that whole process of looking into getting down to who is the leak or who are the leaks, okay? And when did this happen? Why did this happen? How did they gain access to the evidence? Were they possibly paid for this information? Um, I don't know. Who all did they give it to? I've been watching some YouTube videos for a while, and I hear um, other creators say how information is sent to them, and they're refusing to release it because they're in fear of what happens if they release it. You're violating the gag order. And again, I have no information that I don't put out. I kind of hinted in some videos in the past, specifically what happened to Ethan Chapin. It's just so horrific, just devastating, and I would not say it. Although, I was aware and I felt it could have been a rumor, possibly a lie, but then I see in this Dateline special that they reveal what allegedly happened to Ethan Chapin, which was just horrible. And I'm very sorry to the Chapin family for that. Um, I know a lot of creators withheld certain information that was very disturbing and hurtful to the families. So, yeah, it's pretty sad to see some information like that be released. I don't want to say in a salacious manner, but what if you're releasing the evidence in the case, um, it's hurting the integrity of the case. And also, if you are interviewing, investigating people, and all of the evidence is out, someone could lie, and that's what you want to prevent. Yeah, let's move on. So let's continue. Kohberger, 30, a former graduate student in criminal justice at nearby Washington State University, is charged in the stabbing deaths of University of Idaho students Ethan Chapin, Zaina Kernodle, Madison Mogen, and Kaylee Goncalves. The four were found dead in a rental home near campus in Moscow, Idaho, on November 13th, 2022. A not guilty plea was entered on his behalf, and the trial is expected to start in August. Prosecutors have said they intend to seek the death penalty if Kohberger is convicted. Let's continue. Hippler wrote in court documents that it appeared likely that someone associated with law enforcement or the prosecution team violated the court's gag order. The leak will potentially make it harder to seat an impartial jury, drawing out an already long and complicated court case. Excuse me. Excuse me. And costing taxpayers more money. Hippler wrote, excuse me, it does impede the case for an impartial jury. It does make it harder. And it could cost a lot more money if they have to sequester the jury for the entire trial. Excuse me. That's going to make it very difficult to see a jury because a lot of people are going to want to be sequestered for 3 months. You know, they have their real lives ongoing at the same time. Importantly, such violations potentially frustrate the ability to ensure both sides receive a fair trial, he wrote. Accordingly, the court finds it is imperative to attempt to see that the source of such leak is identified and held to account. Hippler also ordered everyone who has worked directly or indirectly on the case to keep all records of any communications they have had with journalists or other people outside of law enforcement about Kohberger or the investigation into the killings. Excuse me 1 second. My apologies. Better, a little bit better now. Hippler appeared to have discussed the matter with prosecutors and defense attorneys during a closed portion of Wednesday's pretrial hearing. So I think that happened before the hearing. They had already had that discussion. And I believe that's why the hearing was a little bit late getting started. But he also referenced the Dateline episode and the possible gag order violation during open portions of the hearing. At one point, remarking that after the day the episode aired, he decided to impanel additional alternate jurors for the trial. Digital data and documents obtained by Dateline tracked Kohberger's movements before and after the four students were killed, as well as his browsing history. So, two things. I believe they had 8 alternates, so that would get them to 10 alternates. I'm not sure. I don't know if it went from 6 to 8 or 8 to 10. That's a lot of alternates. But he's right. You know, protect the case as much as you can. And then the other thing is, How would they have access to his browsing history? I believe that would have to come, someone either had to have access to his cell phone or have the cell phone download the data, the records. I think they can narrow that down because you have the experts, you have the prosecutors, as well as the defense. It just doesn't seem logical for the defense to release this information. I'm not sure. You have the law enforcement officers involved, the FBI that was involved. I mean, this is really a big deal, where they had enough information to put a whole special episode together. It's really really bad, because all of these people, their responsibility is to preserve and protect the evidence, secure the evidence, not release it in this manner. Let's continue. Later, Hippler told the attorneys he expected them to file a formal request to have the matter investigated. So Hippler is really serious. He is wanting a criminal investigation into the leak. And I agree. I agree 100%. Is that going to be another bombshell? Like, who's releasing all of this information to the public? Is this going to delay the trial? Yeah. Is the trial going to be pushed back further? You're going to have this parallel investigation going on. And what if you find out it is someone in this close inner circle? What do you do about them? Do you remove them? Do you try to replace them? Do you get rid of the evidence? I mean, this could cause a whole new set of issues. And again, the trial is in weeks now. It's less than 3 months away. And again, you still have to set a jury. Let's continue. On top of adding 2 more alternate jurors. Last week, Hippler ruled that Kohberger's immediate family members will be allowed to attend his upcoming trial, even if they might be called to testify. So we talked about this, in a past video, but right now, from the hearing, they're going to have 4 reserved seats for Bryan Kohberger's family members. What they kind of discussed at a prior hearing was they could try to put the Bryan Kohberger witnesses for his family first to get them out of the way, so then they could then be allowed to sit alongside the trial and watch the trial as it goes on. So I'm not sure if that's how they're going to handle it. Typically, a prosecutor will not want any witness in the courtroom listening to evidence as the trial is going on. But I think the compromise will be, if you're going to question Bryan Kohberger's family members as witnesses, you want to put them on the witness stand pretty early on so they'll be able to sit throughout the trial, okay? Let's continue. Hippler previously ruled that family members of the victims may attend the trial. Steve Goncalves, whose daughter was killed, attended a hearing with his wife in early April where attorneys debated what could be presented during Kohberger's trial. So the victims' families, they're going to be allowed to attend the trial. I know, and I don't know if this is still current, but I know the Chapin family, they were not going to be involved and attend the trial. And we just wish them the best during this difficult time for them and their family and his siblings, because Ethan was a triplet. I know they had that special bond. So our thoughts and our prayers, go out to all the victims and their families, family members and loved ones, friends, all of that. Steve Goncalves told 48 Hours last year that there's evidence to show that she awakened and tried to get out of that situation, saying she was trapped based on the way the bed was set up. Now, I don't know if he's referring to Madison Mogen, whom they said allegedly she was in the bed, kind of wedged, not able to move. I don't necessarily agree with that assessment. I believe that Madison Mogen may have been asleep and also intoxicated, and that's why she did not have defensive wounds, and she was not able to get out of the bed during the physical attack on her. I think that she may have been the first person to be attacked. That's just my opinion. Okay, so that is the article. Now we're going to move on because we're going to get to the order at the end. Let's go through highlighting some of what was already discussed. Now I have to go through my notes on here. So we're going to go through some of the pretrial hearing now, okay? So I'm going to share my screen. Excuse me, I have the sniffles. So this video is provided by Fox News. It's titled Bryan Kohberger Faces Pretrial Hearing for Idaho Murders. Now, this hearing was on May the 15th. And I'm only going to highlight certain things that was said. You're welcome to go and review the entire hearing. It's linked on Hidden Horror Facebook page, okay? So the first thing I'm going to bring up is the demonstrative dollhouse exhibit. They talked a little bit about that, basically just stating that it's complete now, is not to scale, and that the defense, they have reviewed it. They had 2 experts review it. So let's listen in here.
With respect to the model, I think referred to as the dollhouse by Mr. Thompson, has that been produced for the defense to inspect?
It has, Your Honor. It's actually here in this courthouse, has been for a few weeks, and Mr. Hurwitz facilitated the defense viewing it yesterday.
Okay.
It is available for the court's inspection if the court would like to look at it. And just for the record, to the extent that the model was characterized as a dollhouse, I think that was an inappropriate characterization. It is an inappropriate characterization. If I'm responsible for it, I assume responsibility, but that's simply not an appropriate way for it to be described given what occurred there and the victims.
I think a better term is simply a model,
Yes, sir.
rough model, given that it is admittedly not to scale precisely. So, Ms. Taylor, any record about that? You had a chance to look at it?
Your Honor, we did. We were able to bring 2 experts in for our request yesterday, and we appreciated being accommodated while we were here. We do have a remaining question about where the model house will be stored during the course of trial.
Where are you storing it, on the 3rd floor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So it sounds like it's stored with the evidence of all of the prosecutors down there. And so
Basically, they're going to put like some wheels on it, and they'll be able to roll it around and move it around. So it will be, when they're not using it, it's not going to be in the courtroom sitting there. It only will be brought out when a witness is going to use it to refer to it, okay? So we're going to move on and get to the alternative perpetrators. So let me go there.
Have you ever seen the magic glasses that can see clearly without glasses? This glasses can not only
the state had, and last I heard, but it's been several days.
Okay, so let me pause it here for a second. My apologies. So they're going to talk about the alternative perpetrators. And the judge is really pressing the defense to provide more supporting evidence. They have to provide this additional supporting evidence by May 23rd as it relates to these allegations of the murders, right? They want more details. He believes that whatever they provided, because this is under seal, because it may not even be introduced in the court, right? Um, but it's under seal right now, and it's going to stay like that, I'm sure, until trial. But whatever the defense provided, the judge felt that it was not information or evidence that's admissible in court, and that the prosecution would object to whatever this evidence is that the defense is providing. So he's wanting the defense to go back. They have until May 23rd to provide additional supporting evidence of whoever these other perpetrators are or perpetrator is, more evidence to support the allegations that instead of Bryan Kohberger, these are this person or these people are the true perpetrators of the murders of the Idaho Four: Kaylee, Maddie, Ethan, and Zaina. So as of right now, the judge is not feeling that there's adequate information or evidence, and whatever was provided, he feels that the defense would object to that evidence or information, and that he's giving the defense another opportunity, additional time until May 23rd to provide more supporting information. And he's going to give the prosecution into June the 6th to respond to whatever the defense submits. And then they're going to have a hearing on June 18th. And at this hearing, there will be some decisions made about the alternative perpetrators. But all of this is going to be under seal. And again, what if this got leaked? What if there's more leaks? Because again, we don't want evidence, information in the case leaked. What if this isn't allowed in trial? Or what if it's different by the time it gets to trial? Remember, it's all under seal. So if evidence keeps getting leaked out and impedes the investigation, it makes it harder when you have the jury, and then Bryan Kohberger rights are violated, right? He has a right to an impartial jury. He has a right to confront his accuser. He has a right to know the evidence against him. He has a right to a fair trial. He has a right to a public trial. All of these rights are under the Sixth Amendment, okay? So that's what we're going to listen to now, a little bit about the alternative perpetrators.
The defense, we were still waiting for someone from the defense.
And I believe that that's been provided. My hope was that it was sufficient, because I think it came back and we re-provided it.
Okay, I'll check.
If it's not sufficient, let us know.
I'll check on a break to see where it's at. All right. So I did, as I indicated this morning, receive the defense's proffer regarding alternate perpetrators. That will be sealed per request, I'm assuming per stipulation. And I want some additional information there. What I'd like is by the 23rd, if possible, for the defense to do two things. One, provide me with whatever actual evidence you have that supports those allegations, rather than just allegations. And two, provide for me how it is you believe that what you are offering is admissible.
Let me pause it right here. This goes back, and this is, my brain is linking things. When Ann Taylor, for the defense, said that she had witnesses that were uncomfortable with coming forward. She's having a hard time getting these witnesses for the defense. This could be relating to these alternative perpetrators, and also her asking for these witnesses not to be revealed, their faces, the cameras not to be on them. This could also relate. And it makes me think maybe this is why she's giving vague or very little information when she's submitting this information to the judge about the alternative perpetrators. Um, from what I have seen, from the idea of alternative perpetrators, people that have seen certain things, like there was a witness that allegedly saw Dylan Mortensen outside with others. You have someone that also is on the record saying, uh, the information that got out very early in the morning, and how people were up in the house in King Road. But information was coming out. We know now that the surviving roommates, Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, they were online, they were on apps, they were taking sending information, making calls, etc., etc. One was taking photos allegedly. So you may have these witnesses that are reluctant to come forward, especially if they are in fear that they could be harmed, or that the killer or killers are still out there that could harm them, put a target on them. I don't know how far she's going to go with this idea of the alternative perpetrators and what evidence she has, but I can easily see why she's wanting some protections for these witnesses, and just disclosing to the court that there is some people that, they have reluctance, they have fear. She didn't use the word fear or reluctance, but I could see that being an issue with witnesses coming forward. It seems like no one really wanted to talk to the defense or cooperate with the defense over this time of over 2 years, watching the hearings and the evidence and the case as it's matriculated through the system. I could understand that. So let's continue.
Because it seemed to me much of what you had put in there was fairly potentially fairly objectionable in terms of admissibility. So I would like to see that. And then I would have the state respond by the 6th, which is 2 weeks. And then I would propose a hearing on the 18th.
So I'm going to pause it here. We don't have to listen to that anymore. I think you understand how things are flowing. The judge isn't satisfied. He feels that a lot of what was submitted by the defense, it would be objected by the prosecutor. Does that mean that you still can allow it? It's up to the judge. Is she going to, provide more information, more evidence? He wants more. Okay, so if we move along the hearing, they're going to talk a lot about the jury questionnaires, the voir dire process, possibly sequestering the jurors. Definitely sequestering the jurors once the jury is deliberating on making their decision of guilt or innocence. And then talk about more administrative things, like how the courtroom is going to go, how they're going to go daily, things like that, how they're going to reserve seating for the two alleged victims, Bethany Funk and Dylan Mortensen, and then they're going to have the 4 seats for the Bryan Kohberger family. I don't think you need to hear all of that. We'll just move along. He talks a little bit about how the witnesses will be set up, the testimony, the exhibits, basically just being on top of everything, coming to the courtroom, submitting information, sharing information, working together. If you have any issues, bring them forth, things of that order. So we're going to move along, and we're going to go closer to the end of the hearing. So this is where we get into the administrative order. Okay. All right, let's go about here. My apologies for the interruption.
Dismiss the public and we take.
Okay, so let me set this up. So I have the administrative order. We're going to go through it right after we listen to this. The administrative orders, because the Dateline special that came out about Bryan Kohberger is basically a violation of the non-dissemination agreement, which means you can't release evidence in the case, things like that. He wants to have preservation of all records. He wants to appoint a special prosecutor to start an investigation, a criminal investigation into who did this leak, okay? So this is what we're going to hear from Judge Steven Hippler now, and then we're going to go over his actual order.
Probably take a lunch break and then come back and take that up. I do have a copy. I told you there's a new administrative order. I'll give you a copy of that just so you don't have to go dig for that. What's that? You've already given it to him? All right, perfect. Thank you.
Spare that we could have, Your Honor. That
Sure.
Oh, it's already at hand. Thank you.
Actually, I have copies of the preliminary instructions for you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
In the closed session this morning, I indicated to you I'm going to be entering an order requiring retention of records by the state, and I'm going to write another one extending that to the defense as it relates to.
Let me just jump in here. So when he said closed session, this session he's referring to, I believe it happened prior to this hearing that's public on the record with cameras. I think what happened after the Dateline special aired, which was May 9, 2025, I'm sure the defense was blindsided, very stunned, very shocked. And they immediately reached out to Judge Hippler. I'm sure there's probably some maybe motions filed that were sealed. I'm not sure. Maybe there was an emergency hearing. I'm not sure. But I believe that clearly some of the things that were in the Daylight special were probably true and accurate depictions of either the evidence or information in this sent shockwaves in this case, and more particularly with the gag order being violated and being massively violated under Judge Steven Hippler's watch. He has been clear about how he likes order, how he's going to have his courtroom run, etiquette, professionalism, and all of that. And for this to happen under his watch, I'm sure it was infuriating. And this is where the smackdown order is coming in. This administrative order is covering a lot. It's more so targeted at the prosecution, but to be fair, he has to also slap the defense. But I'm sure he doesn't think the defense leaked it because everything is anti-Bryan Bryan Kohberger, against or negative towards Bryan Kohberger, which would again taint potential prospective jurors prior and right up into the heels of jury selection. So why would Bryan Kohberger's defense do that? Just completely idiotic, right? So this was more targeted to the prosecution, and it's like, what is going on here? What happened with your investigators, law enforcement, your professionals, encompassing anybody that had access to the evidence involving this Bryan Kohberger case / prosecution. So he's not playing around. So let's continue.
Violations of the non-dissemination order. I'm going to give you a copy of what that order is going to look like that I will execute likely over the lunch hour. It does require some action on your part, counsel.
He's talking to the prosecution now because he wants details. He wants documents, records, anything involving this case saved, preserved. He wants a special prosecutor to look into, investigate who had the knowledge, who had the access, who had the records, so they can get down to the source. Who did this leak? He wants to know. Okay? Excuse me.
If I wanted hair hanging down my back like the ancestors
My
blessed
apologies.
it personally, I would use castor.
I have to go back. See if I can get back where we were. We were about maybe here.
Actually, I have copies of the preliminary instructions for you.
Oh, thank you, sir.
He was ready with the order. Already signed. Hot ink. Hot ink.
In the closed session this morning, I indicated to you I'm going to be entering an order requiring retention of records by the state, and I'm going to write another one extending that to the defense as it relates to violations of the non-dissemination order. I'm going to give you a copy of what that order is going to look like that I will execute likely over the lunch hour. It does require some action on your part, counsel. And as I indicated, I would be open to a request for a appointment of a special prosecutor, and that special prosecutor to ask for a magistrate inquiry so they have the power of subpoena and the power to question witnesses under oath, as well as the power to grant immunity. So I will be looking for that from you. And that one just deals with the state. I will get you one that deals with your side to preserve records. All right. All right. Anything else? All right. Thank you. Why don't we come back in about an hour? All right.
So close that out. So the judge clearly is not happy with the leaks. I've been saying it for over 2 years. The leaks. Stop providing evidence, stop providing information. Again, if this does not go through where there's a conviction of Bryan Kohberger and they have to go back out, it's almost as if, again, I see this being a problematic situation. Are you going to ever find who killed the Idaho 4? That is my biggest concern. Just very frustrating. So let's get to it. Let's go over to the Hidden Horror Facebook page so we can go over the administrative order. So if you've never been to Hidden Horror, this is what it looks like. Just pretty basic. I might have to reload it because I added the links later. Yep. Okay. So let's see if we can make it bigger. Okay. So the document is titled Document and Records Hold Order, and it's relating to the Dateline episode. All of it is relating to the Dateline episode, okay? So I'm going to read it. It's about 2 pages long. Based on sensitive information on not previously publicly circulated that was reported during a recent Dateline TV program related to this case and the defendant, Bryan Kohberger, it appears likely that someone currently or formerly associated with the law enforcement or the prosecution team violated this court's non-dissemination order. Such violations not only undermine the rule of law, because they're required to uphold the rule of law, potentially by persons charged with upholding it, but also significantly impede the ability to scat an impartial jury, to significantly impede the ability to see an impartial jury and will likely substantially increase the cost to be borne by the taxpayers of Latah County to prosecute this case by extending the time it will take to see a jury and potentially requiring a lengthy period of juror sequestration. So the judge is saying this appears to have been released information, evidence by someone connected to law enforcement or the prosecution team, which is violating the gag order, the non-dissemination agreement, and that these are the very people that were required to uphold the law, not undermine it, but uphold the law. And it's going to cause a problem seating a jury. And it's not because the information is out there, it's because it takes the jury before they're even seated. They're not going to be impartial. And Bryan Kohberger has a right to an impartial jury. It could cost taxpayers more money because now you got to add 2 more extra jurors, the alternative jurors, right? The extra ones. And also, we might have to sequester the jury. So that means we have to put them in a hotel. We have to pay for that hotel. We have to pay for their meals, their time daily. Okay. That's going to cost a lot more money for Latah County. Okay. So that's what the judge is saying. Okay. So let's continue. All right. Based on sensitive information not previously publicly circulated that was reported during a recent Dateline TV program related to this case of the defendant Bryan Kohberger, it appears likely that someone currently or formerly associated with law enforcement or the prosecution team violated this court's non-dissemination order. Such violations not only undermine the rule of law, potentially by persons charged with upholding it, but also significantly impede the ability to see an impartial jury and will likely substantially increase the cost to be borne by the taxpayers of Latah County to prosecute this case by extending the time it will take to seat a jury and potentially requiring a lengthy period of jury sequestration. Accordingly, the court finds it is imperative to attempt to see that the source of such leak is identified and held to account and that doing so is the best deterrent to future violations. So the judge feels it's a priority to try to find out the source of the leak. And once that happens, they're going to hold that person or persons accountable. Okay. And they feels that this could be a deterrent for future violators. I don't know about that because I've seen a lot of evidence come out from one said person and they haven't done anything. Okay. But, nobody talks about that. It says, accordingly, the court finds it appropriate to exercise its discretion by entering this order. Let's continue. It is hereby ordered that all persons who at any time, past or present, worked directly or indirectly by employment, contract, consultation, or otherwise for or on behalf of any law enforcement or prosecution agency engaged in the investigation or prosecution of persons for the murders that are the subject of the instant case are hereby prohibited from deleting, discarding, overwriting, destroying, altering, or otherwise making unavailable any, whether electronic or immaterial form, records, files, documents, metadata, messages, emails, text messages, direct or private messages, phone logs, or logs of communications, regardless of whether made or kept on a work-owned or personal account, device, or messaging app that in, okay, we gotta go to the next page. Let's make this a little bigger. Any way relate to or document the fact or substance of communication with third persons, including representatives of the media or other persons or entities outside of law enforcement, which communications in any way relate to, refer to, or concern the investigation of Bryan Kohberger, the facts or allegations uncovered or reported to law enforcement concerning Bryan Kohberger, or the investigation into the homicides that are the subject of the current or then potential criminal prosecution of Bryan Kohberger, collectively documents or singularly a document. All such documents or material or records that could potentially constitute a document, even if it is uncertain whether such meet that criteria, shall be preserved and must be protected from deletion, alteration, or loss until further order of the court. Any feature on any device or account that is set to automatically delete or overwrite information that could be covered by this order must immediately be disabled. So he covered a lot. Basically, make sure you don't delete any information, any contact, any messages, any evidence, any records at all. Okay. It is further ordered that within 7 days, the state shall submit to the court in camera, so that's private, not in front of the cameras, a list of all individuals within law enforcement and prosecuting agencies, past or present, who are known to have had access to any facts related to the investigation of defendant, including but not limited to surveillance videos of suspect vehicle 1, the AT&T records for defendant's cell phone, and the content of defendant's cell phone and other electronic devices and social media accounts, including internet search history, photographs, and information associated with defendant's Amazon account, or any information referenced in the above mentioned Dateline episode regarding this case. Let me pause it here. See, my mind is thinking just like the judge. I have not watched the Dateline special yet. I don't even know if I'm going to watch it. I don't want to watch it. I don't want to taint my thoughts. But from the little things that I saw, I was concerned about the picture. I was concerned about the suspect video. And the judge is going right to my thoughts. Who had access? Who had the knowledge? Who had the information? Who had the records? So he's requiring. It said 14 days. He reduced it to 7 days. He's not playing. He wants to know now. That means that that's next Thursday. That's May 22nd. He wants to know. He wants to know who had this access, and he wants a list because that's going to be turned over to the special prosecutor to aid them to figure out who is the leak, who potentially, possibly is the leak that leaked the suspect video 1 video, who leaked the cell phone records data from the download, who had access, right? I was thinking the same thing, and I haven't even watched the episode. I'm going to skip it, and I think I'm going to skip it. But I also, kind of interested to know what else is in there. But I don't want to be tainted because, to me, all information that I've seen, I'm not excluding Bryan Kohberger as the killer. I just don't have enough evidence to say he is the killer or one of the killers. I think it's multiple people involved. I just don't see the evidence. I don't even see them placing him at the property, 1122 King Road, let alone the lack of defensive rules. But that's another story for another day, okay? So let's finish this out. The state is further required to provide a copy of this order to all such individuals and document that it has done so. So to go another step, not only identify these people, but provide them with the order so that they are on notice that they have to preserve any records that they have, any information. Failure to comply with this order may be a basis for a finding of contempt of court and such other civil and criminal consequences as may be appropriate. Within 7 days, the state must also provide to the court a written plan designed to address and prevent the future unauthorized disclosure of information related to this case and what it has done or proposes to do to identify any violations of the court's non-dissemination orders previously entered in this case and those responsible for such violations. So he wants the prosecution to have a plan to prevent this from happening again. I guess my big issue is it's been going on for so long. Be talking as if the gag order doesn't apply to them or the evidence. And I personally seen a interview where once that person said, hey, they're trying to get as much out in front of the jury as possible before the trial because we can taint them before the trial and before they're set. So if we can taint the jury now, they'll have this information leading into the trial. And they're worried or concerned that some of this evidence is not going to be entered, which is really, it's the wrong way to think. Allow the prosecution to proceed with prosecuting their suspect who they believe did the killings. The unfortunate part of it all to me, they're trying to stack the deck against Bryan Kohberger. The problem with it, let the evidence lead you to the suspects. Clearly, you have multiple weapons. It appears that some people may have had to have multiple people to harm them, injure them. For example, the multiple ways that certain victims were killed. You have some victims that were stabbed and beaten, brutally beaten. Is it likely that one person was able to be hand-to-hand combat and do the stabbing? It's possible. It is. But is it likely when there's 4, it's a quadruple homicide, 4 victims in total? It's very hard to maintain victims on different floors and 2 people in each room. This would indicate to me multiple assailants. And I've also said a long, long time ago in various videos, I always thought that some of the people may have been attacked and held down. In my opinion, I mostly felt that for victim Ethan Chapin because of his height, his size, and the fact that he was the only male. I felt that he may have had someone holding him down and another person attacking him. Now that some information has come out about Ethan Chapin's injuries, which I'm still not going to reveal, I will let that come out in trial if it does. That makes sense to me and goes along with my idea that there were multiple people in the attack of Ethan Chapin due to his injuries. I always felt that he had multiple people attacking him or someone holding him down and another person attacking him. Just my opinion. We could just look at the injuries of the victims, the different injuries, the stabbings versus the sharp force injuries versus the edge weapon injuries, different weapons, multiple ways a person is being attacked. Kaylee Goncalves being both beaten and stabbed, brutally stabbed. It could possibly be multiple attackers on the victims. So that is why I feel the way I feel. On top of that, the defensive wounds, Kaylee and allegedly Zaina both had defensive wounds. I would think the assailants involved in the attacks would be also blocking, fighting back, would have taken on some defensive wounds, also possibly leaving some DNA and also blood evidence behind. Again, we have the blood on the handrail. That is an immovable object. Why it did not get processed, I do not know. And also the bloody glove. Why didn't that DNA get processed? We know it's not Bryan Kohberger's DNA. We know that, right? Are there other DNA on that knife sheath? Is there any blood on the knife sheath? It's just so much that we don't know. It's a lot with this case. What I would have liked to know, or I still want to know, is what were the whereabouts of Zaina Knoedel and Ethan Chapin? If you're able to release all of this information on Bryan Kohberger, his whereabouts, what he had been doing, people he had talked to, his messaging, his search history, all of that, why don't we know anything about the victims and what they were doing? What time did Ethan Chapin and Zaina Knoedel arrive at 1122 King Road? When? What were they doing? What led them to there? Did they get dropped off? Did they walk up? Is that on the video? Since we see the suspect vehicle driving around, do we see Zaina and Ethan walking into 1122 King Road? Did they come in through the rear or did they come in through the front door? How did they arrive at the murder house, 1122 King Road? What time did they arrive at the murder house? Answer some questions instead of misdirecting us with this stuff about Bryan Kohberger. Answer pointed, relevant questions. Provide that information. What were Zaina and Ethan doing the early morning hours of November 13th? Where were they? What led them there? What does their cell phone data, their records show? Where were they? Where had they been? What were they doing? When did they arrive at the house? How did they arrive? Were they alive? Were they already deceased? Were they killed at the house? Were they placed in the house? Do you have video of that? Do you have video of them arriving, walking in the house alive? I have no idea. I don't know. I have a lot of questions. That's what I want to know. If they came in the house after 2 a.m., because allegedly they weren't there during the meeting in Kaylee's room with the other girls, with Dylan, with Bethany, with Kaylee, and Maddie. Allegedly, they discussed getting a late night snack, which does not make any sense because Kaylee and Maddie arrived at the house at 1:56 a.m. Are they now about to go right back out at 2 a.m. to get more food with Dylan and Bethany? It's possible. Just doesn't make sense. And what about all the calls? Back-to-back calls to Jack. Did the murders already start? Were they starting? Was there some excitement going on? Was there something bad happening? Was there argument, a fight? We do not know. We need to know the history of those phones. We need to know what was happening in the lives of all of the victims. What was leading up into their death, the weeks, the days? What was happening in their lives? What do their text messages show? What does their social media show? What about their phone calls? Who were they talking to? Where were they going? What were they doing? What were their plans? What's going on with Zaina? What's going on with Ethan? Kaylee and Maddie? What was happening with them? What does their cell phone records, their text messages reveal? That's what I want to know. That's what I want to focus on. But more specifically, Zaina and Ethan, what were their whereabouts? What were they doing leading up to the time before their murders? Who were they with? Was there a fight that night? Did Ethan get into a fight? Was Zaina there? Was Zaina involved? Did Zaina break it up? Did Zaina have to fight? It's a lot of questions. And as we're leading up to the trial, I sure hope there's some answers. Man, those jurors, they might have some questions. They might want to know why. I personally, I don't need to know a reason why someone does something very bad or heinous. I don't. But in this case, with so much misinformation, wrong information, things that don't make any sense at all. I'm never going to forget that police officer being at 1122 King Road for a noise complaint, giving Kaylee Goncalves a warning. Why did you need to take a picture of her ID? You're giving her a warning. Why do you need her phone number? I'm never going to forget that. That's why I initially thought that law enforcement, police could be involved in the murders. When that officer said, hey, there's no steps that lead up to the 3rd floor, I don't even know why you would think of that. And then the other officer that allegedly had Madison Mogan's phone number, he's on camera saying, I can call Maddie. I have her number. Why are you storing these college girls' numbers in your phone? Why? Always think of obsession, always look at stalking. I always was interested in knowing, did Kaylee really have a stalker? Did any of the girls have a stalker? So many questions in this case, and we need answers, and hopefully the trial is going to put it all together for us. Unfortunately, I just can't say you have the right suspect. I don't know that. I don't know that to be true, because when I look at the evidence, I see a suspect car driving around, potentially a suspect car. And I see minuscule, such a small amount of skin cells on the button snap of a knife. And I don't know who blood is in the house and whose DNA is under the three mixture under Madison Morgan's fingernails. I don't know, but it's all male DNA. But I'm to put someone to death for minuscule skin cells, and we're shedding millions of skin cells a day. No, weeks away. Let me know what you think, everybody. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I really, really, really appreciate it. I hope that you stay well, stay safe, stay savvy. Be well, all my friends. Bye, everybody. See you guys.